Video, I'm going to give you a deep dive into the relevant sections within configuration on your OS. Now, configuration should only ever be accessed by org admins, and there really shouldn't be much need to be digging around in configuration. If you do, it can mess stuff up. So, generally speaking, you won't need to go into configurations, but I thought it would be useful just to show you the sorts of things that it does. Now, there'll be certain links that I won't focus on because there'll never be a need to go into them from a user perspective. So I'm really just going to look at the things that sometimes you might want to look into. So first up, we have system parameters. So system parameters are all of your company-specific details and Vela OS settings. For example, what your caching up error bracket is. So if I wanted to say that our acceptable level of cache count error was 0.25%, I would do that. And then when it comes to counting a till and the cache element of that, if the till is off by plus or minus 0.25%, it will force a recount. If you feel that that's too tight and you want to accept 1%, then you just change it to 1%, and again, that will amend the lower bracket. Now, at double puck, we don't take cache, so that specific element isn't relevant for us. Then we have some general parameters here, so the current VAT rate, the overtime rate multiplier, i.e. do you pay overtime for your employees if they work over their contracted hours. If not, then it's just going to be 1.0, i.e. contracted rate equals overtime rate. When does your holiday begin? So month 1, day 1. What your employer pension contribution is. Where debug supplier orders get sent. Your company logo. The logo will be that. The favicon will be this little logo here. Over here you have some URLs that are linked within certain emails. So the exit interview location, if you have one, will be referenced when you terminate someone from employment, and then you have the option to send an exit interview. So if you have one of those, this is where it will be directed to. These are certain URLs that you'll find within the welcome email. So introduction to Vela, i.e. a fly through of what the system does, getting set up on Vela, i.e. how to sign up as an employee, the HMRC new starter form. Again, don't change that because that's applicable to all people. Here we have emails that Vela will send to, so payroll at double puck is the email that any payroll queries go through to, invoices go to accounts, accidents go to me, head office account is hello, HR is me, the Amhara email address, which is the holiday requests, is me, and accounts email is accounts. Generally speaking, once it's set up and subject to specific people being referenced, you won't need to change emails. Then you've got the privacy statement, which again you've signed off when you signed up to Vela. That shouldn't need amending. You've got your maintenance contract. Now this fires off a text message to this number when a high maintenance log is recorded. Ditto here, and we have some upper and lower limits of maintenance approval. Then you've got the nutrition integration. Again, don't touch that. Production email address, in this case it's myself, so when updates are made to build lists, email gets fired to me. And then we've got iKentoo integration. Now this will be subject to who your EPOS provider is. We're just working on multiple integrations across different EPOS platforms, and you'll see an updated version where it will be a drop-down menu to select the EPOS provider, and then there'll be the relevant API keys. So that is system parameters. So next up, we're going to look at email templates. You can ignore modules, pages, tasks, roles, and permissions. Do not touch these. Next up is email templates. So email templates are emails that are automatically or semi-automatically generated by your OS. So for example, let's have a look at one. So an accident report is an email that is automatically generated when an accident is logged. In this, it has got the name of the report, who the email goes to, and the text within that email. Now you'll see that it logs store names automatically through code. Likewise, it will log date of accidents, time of accidents, the accident of the person's name, the accident of where it happened, and so on. So really, unless it's a branded email, for example, like a welcome email, you shouldn't be changing the reports too much. You can do textual things like, please action if required. Thanks. So you can do things like that, but I wouldn't do, in fact, don't do anything that messes with this coding, because otherwise it won't work. So here is a list of all of the reports. They should be self-evident, so contract change, employee appraisal notification, exit interview, requested holiday, change of allergen notification, employee reinstated notification, for example, when an ex-employee rejoins a company. They should all be pretty self-explanatory. Ones that I guess require the most sort of branding would be your welcome email. So that might be one that you look at. So welcome email, the subject, and how you want to welcome a new starter to your business. Note that it will have @model name, @model organisation user. There'll be certain bits in this email that are coded in, and you really shouldn't mess with that. But what you can do is sort of change greetings, sign-offs, identify the things that they need to complete here. If any of these contracts aren't relevant for you, you can just remove them, and how you sign off emails. So the sort of fluffy stuff you can amend, the hard stuff you shouldn't. Hopefully that gives you a good idea about email templates. If you need a new one created, contact support@vela-os.io and we will create one for you. VA scheduled tasks you can ignore. VAT rates you can add here. Generally speaking, it's either 20% or 0. We have just finished a period of 12.5%. But as and when VAT changes, you can add it here. Store service periods. Again, it's not particularly relevant for most users, but you can add different service periods, breakfast, lunch, afternoon, perhaps you'd have an evening service period, and that's got implications in other parts of the platform. If in doubt though, just don't touch it. Then we have compliance classifications. So a compliance classification is something that needs to be done on a regular or semi-regular basis. You can add compliance classifications to a site. by calling it something, putting in the frequency here. So if it's yearly, the frequency will be once every 12 months. Emergency light test is once a month. 5-year fixed wiring test would be once every 5 years. So that's 5 times 12 months equals 60 months, and so on. And what you can do is you can add your compliance types to the particular site. So, for example, you can see that Rivergate has got a fire risk assessment to do every 12 months, extinguisher check every 12 months, boiler test every 12 months, and a health and safety risk assessment every 12 months. So it's a great way to manage that, and the system will also prompt you when those compliances need to be done. Moving over to production categories. So we have various different types of hierarchy within production categories. Supply of produce can be broken down into these broad categories: bread, drinks, frozen, fruit and veg, meat and dairy, grocery, packaging, etc. Typically speaking, this will be done when you join Vela OS, and there shouldn't be many new produce categories that need adding. If there are, you just right click and then you click new category, you call it what you want, and then you'll be able to assign supplier produce to this particular category. Next up are sales products, and again you can have as many sort of granular level of detail in your categories. I would say that we've gone too granular, and actually we should have had cold drinks, soft, cold drinks, alcohol, hot drinks, tea and coffee, etc. The implication of this is in the CSV download for your EPOS. So, for example, wet, cold drinks, shakes and ice drinks means that when you go onto your EPOS tills, subject to how they're set up, you'll need to click on wet, cold drinks and shakes to get to a vanilla milkshake. If actually you just want to have one click to get to your milkshake, you would just go wet, cold drinks, and then you'd have all of your cold drinks there. It doesn't always work optimally like that, and that's why we've got a next level of detail. But you can see how that works in terms of hierarchy. Then we have prep, and again, I would argue we've gone too granular, but I would typically break these up into sections within the kitchen. So heating and pans, skins and bases, sauces and marinades, salads, etc. We've identified RoboCoupe here because we used to do a lot of in-house prep, and so we wanted to assign quite a lot of prep to the RoboCoupe station, and so it meant managing that kitchen build and the kitchen workflow was really useful by having a RoboCoupe section within prep. Then you have catering, catering and different categories within catering, and ingredients are coming soon, so nothing to worry about for now. Allergens, unless a new food group becomes officially identified as an allergen, there shouldn't be any need to amend these, but these are the 14 allergens here. If you want to add another one for your own business, you can do that, and then it will be identifiable when entering a produce item. Production category build list locations. So this is really important when managing where your builds are shown. So builds are pre-populated prep sheets that the kitchen follow in terms of their daily and weekly production schedules. If you click build in store, then shakes and iced drinks as a category will appear in a store build sheet. If you have a central production site, and let's say you want to centralize all of your deli sandwiches, then we wouldn't want deli sandwiches to be made on site. We would want them to be made in a build store. That is why we allocate to build store. So that is how you identify where things appear from a production planning perspective. It's either built in store or it's built in a build store or a central production kitchen. You also have that ability within the context of catering. So you can build them in store or you can build them in build store. Coming down onto equipment, we have employee equipment, and this is where you can enter the bits of equipment that you issue employees when they join and that you effectively want to hold a deposit over. So if I wanted to say double puck cap, £25, save, double puck cap comes in. And now that will feature in the new starter forms where I say that I've allocated 5 double puck caps to a new starter. We don't have those, so I'm just going to delete that. Let's just have a quick look through here. I'll save formal training and appraisals for another section. View and edit employment forms. This is very important. These are effectively your contracts. So you have a list of all of your contracts and forms here. And let's take a look at one. Training agreement. So it's called a training agreement. This is the content of that training agreement. And in this instance, it doesn't cross-reference any data points within the new starter form. So it's a generic agreement. What I've also done is I've allocated this training agreement to all of these different contracts that we have within the business. So if you only have 3 different contract types and you wanted to allocate a training agreement to 2 of them, you would just tick the contracts that it refers to. For example, a full-time manager contract is only applicable to a full-time manager. So when creating a new employee and assigning them to a particular contract, it will then allocate this contract to that role. Now in this context, it does cross-reference items or data points within the employee setup. So hashtag employee.fullname will then reference the person's full name from the employee section in Vela OS. You shouldn't really change these without some support because you need to make sure that the hashtags are correctly stated, otherwise contracts and agreements will not work properly in the sense that they'll just get this strange text. So if I was to remove the word D, hashtag employee contract dot probationary period would appear in the contract as opposed to now where it will actually reference the probationary period that's been stated with it when I'm setting up that employee. I hope that makes sense. Get in touch with support at Vela if you need any help with those. What next? Let's have a look at pensions. So pensions are set up on a yearly basis, and you can add new pension periods by putting the start date, the end date, and the pension percentage. And then this cost will work up in the reporting section under payroll costs. Trial shifts, I've been denied. ER and national insurance, again, it's a similar scenario as pensions, where you basically state the period, the monthly personal allowance, NI percentage and the hourly rate percentage, and then you add it and it will appear here and feed into your payroll report. Contract types is where you identify the number of contracts you have within your business. You'll remember that that was referenced in the employee forms section, where you're effectively allocating a full-time manager to a full-time manager contract, and so on. And then training requirements are the training requirements that you've allocated to a new starter within the context of their role. So if I was being employed as a barista, I would be allocated a barista training requirement when I'm employed, and then over in compliance, I think it is, basically refer to the training requirement video. You'll then see the different training requirements that sit within a barista. And then finally, checklist admin. So if you want to create a new checklist for all sites, you can call it something, clean pizza oven. You can allocate it to a daily, a weekly or a monthly task. Is it front of house or kitchen? Is it AM, PM or both? And then a little description here of what needs to be done. Then you press save and it will be added to the checklist tasks that the site, all the sites or site specific need to look at. So here you can see that we've added coffee grinder deep clean to happen on a weekly basis in the afternoon for front of house. And then when front of house go onto their checklists, there will be the option for them to tick that at the end of the week. So I know this has been a very in-depth video, but I hope it gives you a flavour for the different sections of Vela OS System Configurator. If you've got any specific questions, as ever, get in touch with support@velaos.io. Thanks very much.